Good evening, everyone, and welcome into another episode of the Forge Podcast by Shotgun Sports Network Alabama of the Shotgun Sports Network. My name is Ryan Messer, and guys, we've got a lot to get into. We had the Barons' last regular season homestand. We also wound up seeing a few transactions and the schedule release for the Birmingham Squadron. We also have to jump into a new event that we saw this past weekend, the Fanatec GT World Challenge America that was at Motorsports Park this past weekend. But before we get too far into it, I want to thank you guys for watching or listening wherever it may be that you are doing so, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, maybe you're listening to us on Audible or iHeart, wherever it may be. I want to thank you guys for supporting us, and thank you for if you like it, make sure you hit the like button or thumbs up, and share it with people that may not know that we're here giving the news of local sports here in the Magic City. If you don't like it, if you see something that you think needs to be changed, let us know. We're open to all kinds of constructive criticism and all. So just let us know. Hit us up in the comments, or maybe just shoot us a message. So wherever it may be, thank you guys for supporting us. We couldn't do it without you. We also can't do it without Blue Spring Living Water. Those guys have supported us, keeping us hydrated through this rough, brutal summer this past year, and then it's still not over, guys. It's, Alabama weather, it's gonna get hot again. I know we've had some cooler days these past couple weeks, but it's still gonna get into the 90s and the hundreds again, but before it starts cooling off for good. So make sure you guys stay hydrated with Blue Spring Living Water. It's water you don't have to worry about the sourcing, or because it's sourced right here in Alabama over in Blount County, and it's naturally minerally enriched. So take a step toward a healthier life with Blue Spring Living Water. And with that, this is the Forge Podcast. Leading things off with the Birmingham Barons, who had a few transactions this past Tuesday, where the Barons wound up receiving second baseman Niku Rashida from High A Winston-Salem. And then we wound up receiving catcher Weston Eberly from the Charlotte Knights, while Adam Hackenberg wound up going up to the Charlotte Knights, along with center fielder Kanan Smith and Jigba. But with those changes, Birmingham wound up having their final homestand versus Pensacola this past week. On Tuesday, it was just a rough start, as Pensacola wound up having a 4-run first inning, and then Birmingham did capitalize off a wild pitch in the bottom of the first, but that's all that that we could get, as Pensacola wound up scoring another run in the 6th, and Birmingham couldn't get anything else going. So the totals for this game were Pensacola with the 5 runs off of 10 hits. There was 1 error, and they stranded 6. Barons had the 1 run off of 8 hits. There was 1 run, and they stranded 8. On Wednesday, we saw the Barons wound up starting things off with a bases-loaded walk, but then the Blue Wahoos wound up tying it up in the 4th. And it stayed like that through regulation, and then finally ended when Pensacola wound up getting a single run off of wild pitch, and then a 3-run homer as well. So Pensacola wound up having the 5 runs off of 9 hits. There were no errors, and they stranded 6. Barons had the 1 run off of 5 hits. There were no errors, and they stranded 7. On Thursday, the Barons wound up starting things off in the third with 2 runs. With Niku Rashida wound up singling to bring in Michael Turner. And then Wilfred Veras wound up singling on a line drive to bring in Nishida. Pensacola wound up cutting the lead in half with a run in the 4th. But Terrell Tatum wound up singling in the 4th to bring in Turner. And then Jason Matthews wound up scoring off of a wild pitch. And the totals for this game were Pensacola with the 1 run off of 6 hits. There were no errors, and there were 5 men left on base. Barons had the 4 runs off of 8 hits. There were no errors, and there were 5 men left on base there. On Friday, there was just a rough night for the Barons overall, because the only runs scored were by Pensacola, and they were 3 runs in the top of the 3rd. So just rough night for Barons there. Just couldn't capitalize on any of the hits and the walks that we were given. Totals for that game were Pensacola with 3 runs off of 6 hits. There was 1 error, and they stranded 5. And the Barons had the 0 runs off of 6 hits. There were no errors, but guys, we stranded 11. We had 11 men on base and couldn't get any in. That is insane. On Saturday, Pensacola wound up starting things off with 3 runs in the top of the 2nd. But the Barons wound up answering back with 5 runs of their own in the 3rd. With DJ Gladney wound up singling to bring in Riku Nishida and Mario Camilletti. And then Jacob Gonzalez wound up hitting a 3-run homer to bring in Veras and Gladney. For this game, Veras wound up singling to bring in Nishida in the 1st, and in the 4th, sorry. And then Pensacola tried to make a comeback there in the 8th, but only got 1 additional run. Total totals for this game were Pensacola with the 4 runs off of 4 hits. There was 1 error, and they stranded 8. The Barons had the 6 runs off of 9 hits. There was 1 error, and they stranded 9. On Sunday, Barons wound up getting things started with 2 runs in the 2nd, with Weston Eberly singling to bring in Nick Podkel, and then Matt Hogan doubling to bring in Eberly. We saw then the Blue Wahoos wound up coming back, as we saw a run in the top of the 5th, 3 in the top of the 6th, and then one in the 7th, and then 1 more in the 9th. Just a rough night. And then Barons tried to make a comeback with but got 2 runs shy of the win, as they wound up only scoring 3 in the bottom of the 9th. But they scored those 3 with 2 outs. We thought they were going to be done with Veras coming up to bat, but Veras wound up dropping it in the gap, and then Nick Podkel came up. He dropped it in singling to dropping it in the gap as well to bring in Veras, and then Michael Turner wound up singling, dropping it in the gap to bring in Podkel and Gonzalez. So it was insane. It was great to watch. Really pulling for the upset there, but just wasn't meant to be, I guess. So the totals for this game were Pensacola with the 6 runs off of 10 hits. There were 2 errors, and they stranded 11. The Barons had the 5 runs off of 11 hits. There were no errors, and they stranded 12. And the Barons, I know they lost this series, but we're headed to Kodak. We got to finish off the regular season. Hopefully we can get gel and get some things going positive before we start the playoffs on Tuesday, or next Tuesday. But we will be there for the final regular season game, as this is going to be the last regular season game that the Smokies are going to be playing in Kodak, as they are going to wind up moving to Knoxville. We all know how people in Alabama love the city of Knoxville. So, which it's not far away. It's just a few miles from Kodak. So, but we'll also be there for the first playoff game as well. So we'll have you covered. We're also going to wind up airing our next episode from there as well. Elsewhere in the Southern League, we can confirm that the current Mississippi Braves are going to be, who are moving to Columbus, Georgia, are going to be undergoing a name change with the move, with the name licensing rights for the for the Braves. It's going to be, they are going to now be called the Columbus Clingstones, named after the Clingstone Peaches. So we're excited to see that. I know it's a bittersweet moment for that team, and then I know the Columbus is excited to have baseball back in Columbus, and then of course Pearl's gonna miss having the Braves there. But switching things over to the Birmingham Squadron. The Squadron wound up releasing their schedule Tuesday, which we had mentioned last episode that it would be last week. But they wound up having the video, as I mentioned, that to reveal their schedule. And it was at the historic Alabama Theater, with all the famous acts that have been there. Singers, comedians, just an amazing place. It's walking through and going in there just gives you goosebumps. Just how crazy in the history behind that that venue there. They wound up also releasing the video to reveal their schedule, but if you haven't seen it, you can check it out right here.
Another NBA G League season is upon us, and exciting things are in store for this 2024-2025 Birmingham Squadron campaign.
Should be open, swinging around the end of that fence. Now, boys, don't get caught watching the paint dry.
Gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Very talented, energy. It's going to be an exciting season.
such a great video. I loved seeing it. The Alabama Theater. It's just such a historic, like I said, a historical place. Um, what else better way to engage with the city than bring in one of our states, not only our city, our state, but one of our state's most historic uh, landmarks. So, um, the getting ready for the 2024 season, they also had a couple transactions over the past week. On Thursday, we wound up seeing the Squadron trading the returning player rights of Tavion Jones to the Grand Rapids Gold for the rights of Audie's Tony. Most people may remember Tony from playing for Arkansas, as I know a lot of people have a lot of stake in Alabama and Auburn basketball as well. So, as a member of SEC, I'm sure many people will remember him playing there for the Razorbacks. But it's just great to have him on the team. Great addition. Can't wait to see how camp goes. And then on Friday, there was a massive 5-team trade where the Squadron wound up receiving Donis Arms, and then the Magic City Go-Go wound up receiving Amir Sims and the Squadron's first-round pick in next year's draft. The Delaware Bluecoats wound up receiving R.J. Hampton and Osceola Magic's second-round draft pick. Memphis Hustle wound up receiving Oni. And then Osceola Magic wound up receiving Javante Smart. Just a major shift. There was a blockbuster trade there. So, switching over to something new we saw over the past weekend was the Fanatec GT World Challenge America making its first appearance at Barber Motorsports Park this past weekend. The structure for this race is 2 drivers for each race. The classes all racing together, all 3 classes, because you've got pro drivers, you've got a pro-am class, and then you have the amateur class. Just 2 days of racing. You've got 2 races for each venue, each track. So it's really cool to follow. If you haven't started following it, after this, I'm actually gonna wind up following this because I love road racing and just this style of racing. Having the 2 different drivers there is crazy. I love it. But the results were Saturday for the first race. In the pro class, Americans Alec Udell and Tommy Milner wound up winning race 1. For the Pro-Am class, Americans Bryson Morris and Brian Sellers wound up winning the first race. And then the amateur class, we wound up seeing American Jay Schreibman and Brazilian Oswaldo Negri wound up winning that first race there for the amateur class. On Sunday, we saw the second race. It was really hot. On Saturday, it was kind of rainy toward the end of the race. Just kind of got crazy. On Sunday, it was clear blue skies, gorgeous. You can see some of the images here. But in the pro class, we wound up having Americans Alec Udell and Tommy Milner winning yet again in race 2. For the Pro-Am class, we saw American Jeff Burton wound up winning alongside his teammate Swede Philip Ellis on race 2 as well. And then just overall, just a great weekend of racing. Hope to see those guys back next year. Guys, next year you guys should really get out. It's a great event to take the kids to. I love going out to barbers. It's so pretty. Just grab a lounge chair, a little folding camping chair, whatever, and go out there, sit on the hill, and watch some good road racing. So, but in closing, we got Wednesday night. The Legion will take on the Tampa Bay Rowdies. And then we're getting ready to head to Kodak to cover the Barons as they take on the Smokies, and we will be having next week's episode here, actually there in Kodak. And then we are also trying to stay on top of all transactions from the Stallions, the Squadron, and the Bulls as well. So until next week, we will see you in Kodak, and good night.